Hello everybody and welcome back to Kaizoku Dad channel. It's been a pretty crazy week with the new ban list coming out with Whitebeard being restricted to one, as well as Radical Beam and Blocker Marco from OP-02. It's gonna be really interesting to see how the meta changes. Personally, I feel like a lot of people are just gonna be playing a lot more like aggro Zorro, and possibly a lot more yellow. That's just my prediction, but we'll see how it actually goes down. Today, actually, I wanted to uh, make a video on this Black Smoker deck that actually won a store championship in White Bear Lake. I think that's Minnesota. This is actually a deck that I found pretty interesting just based on the card list. And besides, like, I'm not seeing a lot of Smoker nowadays, and Smoker has a special place in my heart because during pretty much all of OP-02, I played Smoker, you know, consistently. So just seeing Smoker win a store championship is pretty cool in my mind. So that's kind of the reason why I wanted to share this list with you. And without further ado, here is the list. So what really caught my attention with this deck is a couple things. Actually, first, three 10-drop Kuzans and three 8-drop Iso or Isho. Not sure how to pronounce this one either, but these are pretty big guys, and this deck runs three of them. The other thing that caught my attention was just I think there's 16 2K blockers here, if I counted correctly. So that's 4, that's 8, that's 12, 14. Sorry, there's 14 uh, 2K blockers, and that's most. I mean, most people run between 8 to 12. This one's going just a little bit over, running 14, which I thought was interesting, but also just thinking about how this deck works, it makes kind of sense. Because if we're looking at the cards that it's running, so we're running the Admirals, all three, 4 of each, which is pretty staple, especially considering it's a Smoker deck. I think that's pretty reasonable. We're running the Kobe's again, pretty another staple Smoker card. And then we have the new Fukuru, um, which is a new blocker that can't be KO'd, just like Borsalino. Except this one can't be KO'd by effects at all. Borsalino has that weakness where he can be KO'd by like an event or trigger that happens during your opponent's turn. No, during your turn when you attack. Um, so Borsalino has that weakness. Fukuru does not. And it's running Smoker, and we're running Shockwave for more defense. So obviously this deck is pretty late game heavy, and I think like your closers are probably gonna be like Smoker, and obviously your 10-drop and your ESO. Um, so just trying to get to the end game, with with as much dawn as possible. It does justify the 14 2K counters, and also the 4 shockwaves. And not to mention also, like, once you have these bodies on the field, like your Smoker and your Sakazuki and your Borsalino, um, when they're rested, you want to protect them, and just having enough 2K counters for that, it's pretty reasonable. Um, so that does justify a lot of the 2K counters, and not to mention also, like, you have a lot of cards in your hand that don't have any counter at all. So you have like 4 Kuzans, 4 Sakazukis, that's 8 right there. You have 3 Kuzans, it's 11, and then 2 more, 13. So 16 cards in your hand with these over here that don't have any counter. So you pretty much need all the 2K counters that you can get your hands on, for this deck, not only to protect your life but to protect these characters as well. So I mean, 16 cards without counters. I imagine there will be several situations where you do have a lot of cards in your hand, but they don't all. You can't use them all to counter. So the shockwaves and the 2K counters are pretty vital in this deck. Um, so just going into it, just looking at this, it seems that um, this might be a good matchup against yellow. I can see this deck struggling a lot with decks that rush the board really quickly, so like rush Zorro. Um, but if we're talking about decks that just put one big guy out at a time, those decks are pretty easily manageable with Sakazuki and Kobe. And they don't put in a lot of pressure so that you can drop your Kuzan and your Iso pretty much, on curve or pretty early on. So, um, I think yellow likes to play like that in a way where they're just putting out, maybe one or two big guys. This deck seems like it can keep up with that. Against the rush Zorro kinds, you're gonna have to rely a lot on impact wave and your blockers just to get to the late game. But we're gonna go into that as we talk about the mulligan and early game. Let's talk about the mulligan here. So black is actually one of those decks um, where the mulligan can make or break your game. Especially because black has very little search abilities, unless you're running the CP9 deck, which is a little bit different, but still, regardless, um, mulligan is really important, especially in this deck. So, depending on your matchup, you're gonna want to have certain cards in your hand. Um, One card that you always want to start off with is the Renew. Um, he's gonna be your 2-drop searcher. Um, Obviously, this deck likes to go second, so it's on even dawn, so you can drop your Iso on turn 8 on 8 dawn and your Kuzan on 10 dawn. So going second is pretty big for you. And Renew being able to play that on your first turn is pretty big too. So, but this card is one that you are going to want, pretty much in every one of your opening hands. Um, Now the rest is going to depend a lot on the matchup. So, for example, if you're going up against like Rush or um, decks that kind of flood the board pretty early on, having a Kobe and like your Borsalinos and your blockers are going to be pretty good. Impact Wave is going to be the card that that you want to search in your opening hand for your mulligan, or with actually bringing you as well if you don't have it. Simply because Shockwave is going to protect you from an attack and also KO at your last character that's on the board. So when they're flooding the board like that with a bunch of little guys, Impact Wave is going to hit at least a target. So um, I didn't include that up here, but that's only because there's so many cards that you can mulligan for. It's just going to depend on the matchup. Like against yellow, a Kobe's still pretty good, and a Borsalino is pretty good. Um, Most of the time, yellow is maybe gonna have one or two characters in the opening game. So just having one Borsalino being able to attack one, block one attack, it's pretty valuable. But again, it's all match dependent. If the more aggressive decks, you're gonna want your impact and your shockwave, and you're gonna want your Kobe's just to be able to keep up and make it to the late game. Um, if not, then if you're playing against like a much slower deck, mulligan for Borsalino or for your 4-cost Kuzan. Um, this guy is pretty important. Um, Also, if you're going first and you're not on even, having a smoker in your hand is actually pretty good. It's a lot of pressure, 7k, 5-drop. and he can't be KO'd by any effects, and he has double attack. So he's going to be a constant threat on the board. And as soon as he's rested, you can bet that your opponent is going to want to try and KO him. So going first, I think having at least one smoker in your hand is pretty good. Other than that, if you're up against like a law, having a Garp in your hand is pretty valuable. You can even play him, because with your ability and Law running a bunch of little guys as well, you can KO something pretty quickly with Garp and maintain some kind of board control. So again, this is all match dependent, but cards that you want to see in your hand are definitely like the Brinu, a blocker like Porcelino or Fukuru, one or two 2Ks, or just a body that you can put on the board, so like a Kuzan. And Impact Wave is also, having one of these is pretty good. So, I mean, not having a combination of these cards in your hand is going to be pretty good. But again, so it's all match dependent. And you kind of have to, at the start of the game, you really have to think about how you want this game to go, because you want to be playing your Kuzans and your Isos. You're going to have to think about how much life you're willing to give to your opponent before you make it to like turn 8 and turn 10. So it's up to you. We do have a lot of 2K counters in this deck, so you can use them a little bit more freely, but not, but still, be selective as to when to use them to protect your life and when to hold on to some to protect your minions, your characters after they've attacked. Okay, so your strategy for the early game wants to look something like this. Ideally, you want to be able to search something, just to be able to look, just complement what you have in your hand and add what you need. So bring you definitely. Second turn, you want to either establish a body that you can start controlling the board with, so that's either Kuzan, or you want a body that can, protect you early on. When that's Borsalino. Fuguru is I would definitely play Borsalino over Fuguru, just because like Fuguru, he's pretty much a one blocker, one and done. Borsalino, he's easier to just keep on the board. It's just simply because he goes up to 6k on your opponent's turn, and just being able to have at least one 2k blocker or one 2k counter in hand means that like he can block something up to like 7k. So it's pretty easy to keep him alive over Fuguru. But if you're being aggroed down, I would definitely just invest some Dawn into Fuguru just to be able to get out of the early game. But early game, you want to search and you want a body on board that can just help you maintain board control. Kuzan does that. Even Kobe, to an extent, he can do that. He can KO something, and he's at 4k, so he can definitely take out some of the little guys as well. So, but that's just a general strategy. You want to maintain some kind of board control. And Borsalino and I think Kuzan do it very well. Kobe does it pretty good too. But yeah, just try that's the overall strategy here. Add something to your hand, add a body to the board, and just it sets you up for the mid game where you can put in some of your more bigger guys, and do it easier without having to sacrifice a lot of life for it. Okay, yeah. So these are the cards that you want to see definitely mid game. So between your 5 to 7 Dawn turns. And the reason why I also included Kuzan is just to illustrate how powerful or how strong he can be, even in just putting him on the board in the early game. Simply because if he's already on the board by 5 to 7 Dawn turns, let's say your opponent just drops like a 5 or 7 drop. Having a Kuzan already established on board just makes it so much easier to pop a big guy with your Sakazuki, or if you already have a Kuzan on board and you play your 5-drop smoker with double attack, it just puts an immense amount of pressure on your opponent. Um, you don't have to attack with Kuzan in the early game. Just having them on the board active is just a threat, because your opponent knows that Kuzan can be followed up by either a Sakazuki or a Smoker. So they have to find a way to either play around Kuzan's ability or find a way to KO him, um, before he can attack. And if your opponent does decide to KO him, that's just resources that he's using, um, to try and clear him, which means he won't be able to effectively develop his board as he would like. And even if it does KO, you can still drop your Smoker, you can still drop your Sakazukis on the board. Especially Sakazuki, like, you don't have to pop anything. His effect is you may trash one card from your hand to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So the you may trash one card to KO another card is optional. If you just want to play him and there's like just a bunch of little guys in the field that you don't want to discard a card just to pop, that's perfectly fine as well. You know, you can just drop him as a normal 6 cost, with 7k attack, and it's a strong body. And you want these cards out of your hand anyways, just because they don't have 1k counter. Like, the more time that these 2 cards spend in your hand, like, they're just wasted resources. Yeah, the hand is just the worst possible place that these cards can be in. So you want to play them, even if you don't find a lot of value with Sakazuki just playing him. You run 4 of these, so just, it's okay if one of those Sakazukis, you just play them as a normal vanilla 7k. So it's perfectly fine. You want these on the board anyways, just for their strong bodies and putting pressure. But this combination right here of these 3 cards is a really strong mid game, and if these cards are on the field together, like, it's a good sign that you're kind of ahead in the game. So your late game, it's gonna be Kuzan and Iso. Like, the whole point of this deck really is just to take advantage of Kuzan's and Iso's ability to just minus everything on the board, and just having these guys enable, like, Sakazuki and your Kobis to hit bigger characters that would normally be out of their reach. Iso also comes with an ability, an on-play ability that kind of lets you trash 2 cards from your opponent's hand if they have 6 or more cards. So it's, in a way, it's a board presence with a way to kind of like, disrupt their hand. And especially with black decks where you're constantly discarding cards for effects, Iso kind of helps mitigate that with by forcing your opponent to discard as well. So I mean, a lot of players have already been kind of accustomed to playing around Iso. Like, as soon as they enter their 7 or 6 dawn turn, a lot of them start countering more just to reduce the cost of their hand, just so that Iso doesn't get that value. But even if they do that, I think playing Iso on turn 8 is still a pretty good play, even if you don't get to discard anything, just because his normal ability where you just attach 1 Dawn on him and it -3 cost everything on the board, so on your opponent's character, so it -3 to their cost. That just brings so many characters into range for Sakazuki and Kobe. So even if you don't get to discard anything if your opponent is playing around that around turn 8. It's perfectly fine just to play him. Of course, it's so much better to be able to discard 2 cards from their hand, but it's not always going to happen. And again, like we mentioned with Sakazuki and Smoker, these cards don't have any value as long as they're in their hand. As long as they're in your hand, they don't even have a 1K counter on them. Just putting them on the board is, it needs to happen. Being able to control the early and mid game so that you can just put these characters on the board is really important, because like Iso, you put him on the board, but his threat doesn't start until the next turn. That's when he can start to attack with 9K, and that's when you can start taking advantage of his ability. Kuzan is really it's. I like Kuzan, simply because you can KO something as soon as you put it out on the field. So anything that's 5 cost or less, he will be able to KO with his on-play ability, which is KO a character with a 0 cost. And during your turn, everything is already minus 5 cost. So Kuzan has an ability to be able to pop something as soon as he's out. Iso doesn't. So you have to keep that in mind. Like, if you're losing board by turn 8, it's going to be really tough just to pay 8 Dawn for Iso, because he doesn't change the state of the board on that turn. Kuzan, he requires all of your Dawn just to play him, but at the very least he has some impact on the board. But again, like these guys are your finishers, and they are also your enablers in this deck, specifically for Kobe and for Sakazuki. So just getting to this late game, it's gonna require you to like really think about how you're gonna use your resources. So you have very limited resources for Sakazuki's and for Kobe's, which are the ones that are gonna be taking advantage the most of your Kuzan and Isos, but also your Smoker. I know I did say that he is your finisher, and he really is. With Iso and Kuzan on the field, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be 0 cost, and his double attack, it's going to be a threat and a pressure. So, but none of this really kind of goes into play unless you have the Kuzan and the Iso late game. So it's a pretty straightforward strategy for this deck. It's not too complicated. The trap that I would advise people not to fall for is just early on in the game to just completely exhaust all of your resources with Sakazuki and Kobe. Like, yeah, it's very tempting to pop something. Like, let's just say you're playing against yellow and they summon a Sanji, which is a 2 cost. On your turn, it's very tempting to just, like, before they attack with it and draw a card, essentially, to just Kobe it. It's very tempting. But you have to think about it. Like, okay, they'll draw 1 card, but I can easily kill the Sanji next turn with just my leader card without having really to invest any Dawn or resources. So, you're gonna find yourself in a lot of these situations where it's easy to kill something with Sakazuki or Kobe, but is it optimal and is it vital? Those are the kind of thoughts that you need to be going through each turn. Like, okay, if I don't kill this, if I don't kill this Sanji, am I, like, is it that much of a threat? How much value is it going to get? Is it important to kill this, whatever it is that you want to kill? with Sakazuki and Kobe. Sometimes it will be. Sometimes it'll be worth it. Sometimes it won't. Like sometimes it's just like, okay, they can get an attack in, but then I can just count next turn. On my turn, I can easily counter it with just putting a couple of Dawn on one of my characters and not having to discard my hand and saving my Kobe or my Sakazuki for something more important. Um, so this deck really does require you to know the other person's like deck, your opponent's deck, and what they're trying to do, like the key cards in their deck, so that once you do know like the vital cards that you need to take out as soon as possible, then you'll know when to use Sakazuki, when to use Kobe, and how many you should save up to keep that in your hand, when your opponent does play those cards. So, this like that's in general how black decks usually work. You have to know your opponent's strategy and manage your resources um, throughout the game to counter, those key cards. So this is the deck. Like I said, what really surprised me was the 3 Kuzans and the 3 Isos, because it's a really late game heavy deck. Getting there is an uphill battle, and once you're there, it doesn't necessarily get easier. So this deck, it's not a deck that I would say it's for beginners, because there's so many easy traps with Sakazuki and Kobe where you can just easily just waste your resources early on, and by the time you get to the late game, where even if you have a Kuzan or Iso on the board, like you have no hand, and it's easy for your opponent to deal with these cards in those situations. So this deck does require a lot of uh, observation hockey. Just being able to tell what your opponent wants to do and what their deck wants to do. So definitely not an easy deck, but it is a deck that I think is satisfying to play. Definitely, especially when you have a Kuzan and Iso on the field, it is very, very satisfying. So before I end the deck overview part of the video, I just wanted to introduce some tech choices that you can possibly use. Um, and these are some of my, like, if I were to adjust this deck to kind of my own playstyle. These are some of the cards that I would, consider. The first one is Garp, which is another character where you can discard a card and you can KO up to a character with a cost of 4 or less. He works very well with like the Kuzans and the Isos and the 4-cost Kuzan as well. Um, he's essentially just another like a cheaper Sakazuki, if that's how you want to do it. The only difference is that he's kind of like an infinite version of Sakazuki and Kobe, simply because it's not an on his ability is not on play, it's activate on main. So it reads: you may trash one card from your hand and rest this card. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So it's not an on play ability. You can use it as long as Garp is alive and active. You can use his ability. There is no limit. The only limit is how many cards you have in your hand. Um, that's the limit. And so I think Garp can fit pretty well into what this deck wants to do. Um, the downside is, again, it doesn't have any counters on it. So it is one of those cards where if you just keep it in your hand, it's not gonna find any value, and it's just gonna clog up the hand. Essentially, you can't even defend with it. So I wouldn't run too many of these. Maybe one at least. Two might be a little much, especially if you have the 5K smoke, the 5-cost smoker, which is I think is a pretty good card. So. But if Garp is one of your favorites and you want to include it, you can go ahead and do so. You can, um, you just have to, think about which cards you want to replace it with if you want less 2Ks. If 14 2K counters is too much for you, you think if you're drawing too many, maybe taking out one for a GARP could be a good idea. Speaking of 2K counters, there's another one. There's another 2K counter that I actually like. He's called Virgo. 2K counter, 5 cost, 5K attack. What I like is his ability. So Dawn 1, this character cannot be KO'd in battle. So one of the things that I like to do with my when choosing 2K counter cards for my decks is to I imagine like, is this card also playable in a situation where, you know, I don't have anything else to do? Is this card playable? Um, this Virgo, even though he will mostly the majority of the times be used only as a 2K counter, um, I also see him as a potential just mid game character that you can actually play. That's pretty viable. Let's just say you enter your 5 Dawn turn, and you don't have a 5 cost smoker or like a GARP, um, but you have him. I would totally play him. 5 cost, 5K. You don't, and his ability with just 1 Dawn and he can't be KO'd by battle. I think that's a really strong ability. And also he's a navy, so he's searchable with Renew. So I think this is one of those 5K or 2K counter cards that's completely playable, just like the 2 cost version of GARP, which we have over here. This is a completely playable card on turn 2, like especially against Law. He's more than just a 2K counter. He's a really great 2-drop. Same thing with Khalifa. Like most people just use her as a counter only. But she has an on-play which she draws 2 cards. You have to trash 2, but then she minuses 2 cost something on the board. So that's very useful. Even Tashigi as well. Like on play, you can arrest her and minus 2 cost something. And Tsuru too. These 2K counters, they're all very playable. When you find yourself with very limited options, these guys can open up different plays that you normally wouldn't be able to do, and that's kind of what separates good black players with like mediocre black players. It's being able to take advantage of like these 2K counters and do things with them that other people wouldn't do. I've seen some very aggressive black players just play Tashigi on turn 3 because they have nothing better to do, and not use their effect. It's just they're active. They can attack with her next turn if they want, or they can just use her ability to enable something with Sakazuki or Kobe. So they just play her and leave her active. So there's just different ways to take advantage of these 2K counters, and I think Virgo fits that. It fits that style very perfectly, especially with his ability that this cannot be KO'd in battle. So your opponent will have to use an event or an effect from a character to get rid of him. Otherwise, he's just attacking every turn. So that's another 2K counter that you can consider. It's something that I would consider too. And then the last one is just another blocker, Rosinante, and there's some decks out there that struggle against blockers, like yellow. They struggle to get past blockers. Small or large, it doesn't matter what their attacks are. Decks like yellow, they have very limited options to be able to get through blockers. They just have to attack through them. Other decks like red decks, they can get through very weak blockers easily. So adding more blockers to the deck is, it's an option, but you have to just keep in mind the matchups that you expect to face. If you're expecting a lot of red players, which is honestly what a lot of people are running anyways, then perhaps not running a Rosinante is a good idea, simply because it's too weak and it gets popped very easily. But if the meta turns into more yellow, you know, then just adding more blockers over 2Ks could be a viable strategy. But again, that's just up to you. These are just some of the cards that I would add. Meteor Wave, I didn't put it up here. Meteor Wave is a 2-cost event where you can KO something that costs 1 or less. Since you're running ISO and Kuzan, there's going to be a lot of situations where there are going to be a lot of like 1 cost or less characters, and you'll be able to find value with Meteor Wave. So, but those are just options that you can take. It's up to you. It's up to your playstyle, and really, this deck does have like a good core. I think obviously the admirals are the good cores. The Brinu is a core card, and just since this deck runs a lot of, you know, late game cards like Kuzan and Iso, there's a lot of black cards that can take advantage of their ability. So it's just up to you how you want to use those cards, and if those cards are, you know, will help you achieve what this deck is trying to do. So thank you for watching so far. I'm going to jump into some games and show you just you know, what this deck can do. Alright, so we are up against Arlong. This is a very aggressive deck. I think on this case, I'm just gonna go first. I'm gonna Mulligan. I like the Fukuru, but I think I prefer a Borsalino. And I want a 5-cost Smoker too. Alright, so we got the Kobe, we got the Fukuru. Okay, so we're probably going to be using the Kobe a lot because of the 4 cost that he can cheat out. So we're going to end our turn here. Yeah. Okay, this is fine. Ikoku Sovereignty. Alright. We have a Shockwave, which is pretty good for us too. But we're going to drop the Fukuru. We're going to attack first. Okay, blocked, and then we're just gonna drop the Fukuru here. Okay, so he's gonna do 8 and drop the Cracker, which is fine. We're not gonna block this. We'll take it. It's not a problem. We are gonna Kobe here. And then we're gonna have 1 more left, so we might as well just use it to attack here. And attack first. No, depends. I think there's a trigger. No. Yes, there's a trigger. Okay. We discarded a Brule, which is fine. Okay, so we're gonna definitely pop that. I think we're gonna have to discard the Kuzan, honestly. Or the Shockwave. Next turn is gonna be our 7th turn. It might be Shockwave simply because we're not gonna have a lot of Dawn left for a Shockwave, unless we do Borsalino and Shockwave next turn for 6. And just have 1 Dawn to attack. That might be the play. I think we're gonna have to do that, and then we're just gonna have to discard this 4-drop Kuzan. Okay, that's what we'll do. I can take 1 more Dawn. I mean, 1 more life. It's not a problem, I think. But we're definitely gonna have to counter 1. And I don't know if I want to use the blocker or a counter from him. I guess I don't even get that choice with Jin. Okay, so she's gonna attack him. That's fine, I think. Don't want to waste too much resources defending that. Now, I think I'm willing to do 1 2K for Kobe, because then that forces either Arlong to kill him, which gives us another turn. I think that's fine. Now he's gonna go for Kobe. Perfect. Okay. So what we're gonna do here, we're definitely gonna drop Borsellino and Shockwave. And we're gonna try and clear this. Or nah, I think Sakazuki is gonna have to be next turn. He might drop Big Mom next turn, so I'm definitely gonna need him just to clear it in some way. But for now, we're just gonna do this. Okay, so he draws another pair of Sparrows. So it doesn't have another counter in hand, which is fine. Now we'll just do Porcelino and leave 2 up for Shockwave. Okay, so alright, so he's attacking. He still has a chance to do Big Mom. If that's the case, it might be better to discard. We'll discard here. If it's Big Mom, we'll definitely discard 1 life and we'll be at 3. If he attacks with Arlong without an ability, yeah, okay, so it's not Big Mom. It's probably, okay, he's gonna do a Cracker. In this case, we'll do Shockwave. And then we'll just do that. There's a Pure Spirit. Okay. Now here we have to make a decision as to whether Sakazuki or Iso. I think I'm gonna have to go with Iso here. Charlotte is gonna want to attack definitely to get his double attack. So we're gonna have to use our Borsellino. Unless we want to Sakazuki the Cracker. But I don't really want to. I'd rather have the Iso and have the Sakazuki for something bigger. So we're just gonna do this. See what happens. Okay. Then we're just gonna play that. It's better to have him on the board. Even if Cracker's double attack goes in, we'll just be having more cards in our hand, which isn't bad, but still. We don't want the game to get too far ahead of us. Okay, so the question is, do we block here? I think we kind of have to. And even if there's a Big Mom, I think it's not too bad. I think the mistake was to not take at least 1 life so that this wouldn't have activated. Maybe that was the mistake. But it's okay. We'll take that. No, he's doing 7. He's not going for Big Mom. So does he have Krieg? He probably does. we're gonna take that too. Yeah, I think he has Krieg. So we're gonna stop it with Brynja. Yeah, so there it is. We can easily clear it. The only question is how. And what do we want the Sakazuki. I don't think we're gonna be able to play the coups on this turn, so, or in this game. This one is probably the one that's gonna have to be discarded. The only problem with Sakazuki is that we won't be able to play Borsalino. And if that's the case, if we want to play Borsalino, then we have to play Kobe. We can play Kobe, it's not a problem. And in that case, do we discard? Do we still discard the Kuzan or the Sakazuki? Well, this is going here regardless. I think we need the Borsalino. So we can't play the Sakazuki. We're gonna have to discard it. So this is 7, and we have 2 down left. We're gonna just do both Sakazuki and Kobe, and pop most of their board, and only have maybe Borsalino left in hand. That's also an option. This is 9. I can kill that. I think it's better just to reclaim the board. So this is what we'll do. We're gonna do Kobe and Sakazuki. We're gonna do that. We are going to do. Well, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do that. And then we are going to do this. Let's see what he does. I think it's better if he just keeps discarding from his hand. That way it makes it easier. Perfect. And we're just going to do this. We'll probably sacrifice him. Yeah, because he's definitely going to kill this. Or not. Okay. I'm not sure what he's trying to do. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. I think this is pretty much game for us, though. Unless we get something crazy with this. I'm gonna do that. We got a blocker. Okay. And okay. This is actually not too bad. But I think this does need to go. Didn't get anything? Interesting. Okay. I'll do this. We'll minus something just in case. Okay, he takes it. That's not a problem. Okay. This is where things get interesting. Okay. He's attacking. I don't think we survive this, but this is the best that we can do. Let's just do that. So definitely, I think if he hadn't gotten this, it might have been better. But yeah, it's came close again, but GG's. Okay, so we're gonna play against Katakuri this time. Unlike with Arlong, we don't going second here is the best, and I think Katakuri wants to go second in general sometimes. But I think we can go second this turn. We got the fours. We have. I don't mind this hand actually. We don't have anything to do on turn 2, but that's not a problem. I think we're gonna keep that. I think this is good. Alright, so pudding. Standard. Another Marcelino, okay. Yeah, this is your turn that we can't really do much, so we're just gonna end. Against Katakuri, I think putting down Borsellino is pretty important, just because they're always attacking for 7k most of the time, and it's easier to block with Borsellino. I think he's gonna do Prospero this turn, so we'll take one. Okay. So we're gonna attack first, see what happens. Takes it. There's another. Okay, these triggers are what's killing us. It kind of ruined this last game of Arlong. But yeah, I guess we still have to go with the plan here. Now there's just more on the field, which is a problem. We'll do. Will we take it? We'll take it. Let's see. Okay, so we have another 2k. That's fine. We're gonna block this one. Or counter it. Interesting. That's a lot. So he's being very aggressive. I don't think I can block this. 8. Yeah, now without having to discard a lot of cards. Unless I give up my Borsellino. And am I willing to give up another Borsellino? What's my next turn? 6 turn. Drop Sakazuki, kill something. I guess we'll take it. Okay. We're gonna have to discard 1 Kuzan. Let's see what he does. Okay. Then that's just okay. That's not too bad. We're gonna discard 1 10 drop. Pudding. Okay, that's pudding. Okay, that's not too bad. We're gonna end turn there. 8 turn is coming up. We don't have the ESO, which is kind of bad. But we kind of had board. Okay, he's being very, very aggressive. So, what we are going to do is... Okay. We can block it, sure. We'll do that. That's 8 also. Is he gonna go for Porcelino? No, he's going for Smoker. Okay. I don't have a way to block that. We're gonna take it. But now we can put. We're gonna do this. We're gonna attack here first. We're gonna try and take board. We're gonna do this. Okay. Now we just do this, and I think we're gonna do this. And this is good. So we have board at the cost of so much life. He's probably got the big mom anyways. In that point, I think maybe we just add more cards to his hand. Okay, oh, he's going for Sakazuki. I think it's easier to defend him. We're gonna... yeah, we'll defend him. We need him. Okay. Alright. Now we can just... we'll tap with the Kuzan first, I think. Okay. We'll just keep going. We're gonna put down our 10 cost. Okay. We're just gonna kill it anyways. What did he discard for it? Discarded. Okay. And draw Charlotte Katakuri. Katakuri. Okay. I think we're good. Not too bad. We have 2 blockers. And we got a board. We have 2 more blockers in hand. He's probably got the 10 cost. If he has the 10 cost, I'm definitely gonna need this, maybe? I can just block. Okay. So, well, don't have to win this turn, but it's, yeah, well, you're gonna have to do something here. I'm gonna do 7 here. Okay. We'll do 7. Okay. Sovereignty. He has 3 lives. Need 4 hits. 1, 2, 3. Each one of these would have to hit if I'm gonna attack with Porcelino. But I shouldn't really risk it, right? I don't need to risk it. I'm doing it like this. And then what we're going to do is get rid of one of these. I think that's fine. Not bad. Thank you. Yeah, we have nothing to stop this, so we're just gonna block here. You can't rush us because he still has one more life. Okay. All right. So we're just gonna make sure that these hit. We're gonna do 2 here. And then we're gonna put 4 here. Alright, dude, GG. That was hard to navigate through at first, just because he was very aggressive, but he didn't develop his board because he was so aggressive. And luckily we kept like the Borsellino, and we had more Borsellinos, so that was good. Yeah, that was pretty good. On to the next one. Okay, we got a Zorro here, so probably is going to be our toughest matchup, and he's going first. So it is definitely going to be tough. Good thing we have 2 Borsellinos in hand, and since we're going second, we can play them on the second turn. So, alright, we're going to keep this. It's going to be tough. We got 2 2K counters, so it's not the worst possible hand, but it's an uphill battle for sure. Okay. If we're gonna have to keep this. Okay, so he drew Radical Being with Buggy. Okay. So his turn now. Okay. Drew Izu. He's probably just gonna play the Izu right now. I don't mind taking this. Might as well, right? We're gonna go with this. Just take off some pressure. And draw Jozu. Okay. He's got a lot of Whitebeard cards. I'm gonna attack first. Let's see how he takes it. If he doesn't take it, then yeah, I'll try and block the rest of his attacks as well. I don't want to get like too far away from him in terms of life. Okay, now we play the Borsellino. Let's see what he does now. Okay. We can block this. Okay, that's okay. Not gonna do it for him though. I'm not gonna let Iso just get it from him. We'll just do this. I don't think I can do it. That's okay. Another buggy. And he drew Radical Beam. So he's not... Okay. So going down to our 6th turn. We're going to put another Borsalino. And we're going to attack this. I wish I had the 5-cost smoker though right now. I think that would be the best thing I could drop, especially with like 2-1Ks or 2-1 costs. But unfortunately there is none. So we're just gonna do another Porcelain. Okay, so you drew Marco. He'll probably do Marco right now. He's not gonna do that, Marco. It's okay. No block. Same play, but it's not too bad. Okay, this is where I'm just gonna play the Sakazuki and not use his effect. And leave 2 up for Shockwave. He's just been focusing on taking care of my Borsalinos and not developing much of a board. I know I'm not going to use Shockwave next turn, so I'll just do it now. I'll take 1 attack to the face, it's fine. And next turn I'm just dropping Kuzan. Or maybe I can just do Iso. Well, I know this for sure is dying. Now the only question is, do I do Iso or Kuzan? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, he has a lot of cards in his hand. We'll start slow. Okay. So he has 6. He has a lot of events in his hand. Okay. There goes 1 Radical Beam. So he took out 2 cards from his hand. We have another Sakazuki too. So even if it does die, it's not too much of a problem. But we do need to start attacking his or getting some life out from him. Yeah, we can't block that. I wish I could block that, but I cannot. Okay. So I might have to discard 1 Iso. Well, we'll see. We're just gonna do this. Okay. Took it, and now we'll do 1 Iso here. Okay. And now we are just gonna do this. It's 8. We're just gonna keep trying to take out his hand. which is the best that we can do right now. We do have to be careful though. Yeah, Zorro's just uphill. But just one Dawn, these guys are already at 7k. It's really strong. Really, really strong. Okay, he's going for Kuzan. We're gonna do 2. Okay. That's perfect, actually. I'm gonna do 1, and then we're gonna do 2. Now all I can do is just attack my face, which is, I'm okay with that. Okay, let's see here. I'm not sure how many events he has in his left in his hand. I hope I get a block. We need a blocker, that's the thing. Okay, that's good. That's a blocker. Alright, we're gonna do this. Let's see if he discards something for it. He does. We're gonna keep doing that. Didn't discard anything for it this time, which is a good sign. That's 7. One more would be 8. Let's go here for 8. Okay. We're developing a board. Took out most of his hand. It's still tough. Maybe I should have actually used 1 more. That would have been a whole lot better. Freak. Yeah, I think I messed up by not putting this 1 Dawn on him. That is where I messed up. Yeah, that's where I messed up on. It's GG's. Yep. See, Zorro is just really tough. It's really uphill. For this deck. I don't know what was in his hand. I think not attaching this Dawn definitely made a difference. Because if he was gone, I would have survived at least 1 more turn. So that was definitely a misplay on my part. But overall, like, and this is just a post. This is not the Zorro that we'll be seeing like next week, because this one's the one that uses more than 1 radical beam, and radical beam is it's already nerfed, so you can only have 1 in your deck. So it's not too bad. But yeah, I mean, this is how the deck has gone for me so far. It is not an easy deck to pilot, I'll tell you that. And I stick with what I said, like, mediocre black players compared to really strong black players. I think strong black players will be able to take advantage of this deck. I've made several mistakes, especially right here with this 1 more Dawn up. That was definitely my bad. But yeah, anyways, I still think it's a fun and satisfying deck. It's not a beginner deck for sure. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, and hope you have a good one. Bye bye.